Hi,
Yep.
Ann.
Hey, Susan.
How are you doing?
Good. How about you?
Good. Enjoying the fall. How about you?
Isn't it nice? Yeah.
Great.
Great weather.
Yes.
Yep. Little snow on the peak. Yeah, it's perfect.
Yay.
Jennifer, I did wave back, but I'm out of the picture, so it's
Oh,
okay.
oh, you are.
That's
You are.
me.
Sorry. Sorry.
I don't need to be.
Hi, Tweed. There's Nancy.
There she is.
Yep. Hey, Nancy.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to see all of you. It's been a couple weeks.
It
Yeah.
has.
It has. Yeah, it's good to see you guys.
So we need Dole and Aaron.
Hi, Bill. Oh, there's Dole.
Hi there.
Hi, Dole.
Hi.
I know.
And that might be the best internet connection I've seen you have in a while.
It's the light. I don't think
Is that
it's
what
the
it is?
connection. It's just whatever lighting
I see.
comes in
Okay.
out of these windows. Yeah. It'll probably change here shortly when the sun gets a little lower.
Funny.
Do you know if Aaron's coming, Dole?
I don't know. I imagine so, but I don't know.
Well, it's 3:30, so we'll go ahead and get going.
Okay.
Welcome, everybody. I don't know why it feels like forever, but since we've been together, but it's only been 2 weeks for most of us. Unlike Jennifer and Todd and so on, it's been much longer. But anyway, so any additions or subtractions to the agenda?
Nope.
Hearing none. Do we have any public comment? No, we have no public on. Michaela, you're new. Have we met you before?
Have met me before. I'm with DHM Design. It's been a while. I'm filling in for Josh Spinner today. He wasn't able to make the call. Is not feeling well today, but I am here to go over some of the plaza diagrams that we prepared.
Great. Well,
Great.
welcome. Thank you. And here comes Aaron. So hearing no public comment, we'll move on to review and approve of minutes from September 21st. I did have one thing, and that is under the budget, Susan.
Yeah.
It says the city's received $500 from Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. We actually received $600K from TPACG,
Oh,
but
okay.
we received $500K, or we're going to receive from $500K from the COG Railway. The agreement's not signed yet, but it's been discussed and agreed to verbally.
So, okay, so I'll just change these minutes to say 600K, and then I can add in these minutes that we're getting 500 from the COG.
Sounds good. Thanks. Did anyone else have anything else on the minutes?
Is that, Nancy, is that 500 from the COG earmarked for mobility hub?
Yeah, yes, it's earmarked for the mobility section of the bathrooms, basically.
Restrooms. Yeah. It's earmarked for the
I'll
restroom.
just put that under updates. Okay.
Perfect. Okay. Any other comments on the minutes? Can I have a motion to approve?
This is Dole. I'll motion approval.
And I take it Ann will second. So we're good to go
Yeah.
in the minute. All in favor
Hi.
Aye.
with the amendment? All right. Moving on. Updates, Dole, anything, what's going on with the roof? You were hoping to get some information from that second contractor.
They visited the site and we're just waiting to get their estimate from them.
All right, so we're still waiting, because last time we decided that we would get that estimate and then decide what we wanted to do.
Correct.
Well, did they say they were going to bid?
The guy, they took pictures and said he would get with his owner, boss, and haven't heard a word since.
Ah, okay.
But
I-
we're expecting a bid.
I think it would be, the more I've thought about this, originally I wasn't a fan of it, but the more I've thought about it, the more I'm thinking it'd be good to do something to the roof, just to use some of the match money, so that when we go back there in January, we can show that we've expended some of that on something. But, so Dole, if you could continue to follow up with the contractor and try to get something for that.
Okay.
Thanks. So Dole, oh, did someone else have something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I am going to do the public notice process for the Hiawatha Gardens roof in the event that we get the bid back by the November meeting, then it could be heard at HPC. If we don't, then we'll just postpone it until December, but that helps us, shorten any lead time on being able to move forward on it.
Good action, Erin, thank you. Dole, anything new on floodplain and earthwork?
Nope, not yet.
All right, do we have an anticipated time? I think, do we have an anticipated time frame on either of those at this point? Any changes to a time frame?
Jennifer, do you know?
Yeah, I can pull up the schedule. Have you shared any of that information?
No.
Okay. So there's some survey coordination being done right now. Kind of our overall schedule is that we would like to come to the November 2nd meeting and have the floodplain study reviewed at that point. So they need 4 weeks to work after the survey's coordinated. That is hinged on that we know something about the survey this week.
So Jennifer, again, November 2nd, you want to come to council?
No, just to the task force.
To
Of course.
us,
I
right.
thought that was a little rapid. Okay.
right. So that'll be the dirt work report? Sorry, I had to step out for a minute. Is that the dirt work report?
That's the study on the floodplain analysis, whether we should raise the building or leave it where it is.
And again, Jennifer, we're calling that earthwork, not floodplain analysis.
oh, we are.
Because people are getting confused. It's
Right.
the earthwork effort.
Right,
Okay. Yes, that's the earthwork effort.
okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Next is grant possibilities. I know that, Dole, you were looking at a couple, Susan, you were looking at a couple. Any updates on grants? And Dole, I guess specifically when we might hear from the CDOT grant that you did?
Yeah, they said,
I think October.
yeah, I think it's late October is what they said. Let me find that email.
That would be really good
Yes, it would.
if we get it.
Otherwise, I will reach out with the review committee decision mid-October, she said.
Okay, well, fingers crossed.
And
And I'm
but
trying
while-
not, go ahead.
well, yeah, fingers crossed. Also, why I have the microphone, I'm going to be switching to my cell phone here in a little bit, just as an FYI to everyone.
Okay. Susan, did you have anything you wanted to add on the grants?
No, I've just sort of been going, sort of trolling and seeing what I could find about possibilities of organizations that might fund historic dance halls. So I don't have anything exciting to report. I'm just kind of collecting information.
And that's what I'm doing as well. And I've got list that we can go to. And one that I did a long time ago was actually in Texas.
Yeah,
So, because they're dance halls are very popular in Texas.
tons of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, okay. Anybody else?
Well, Nancy, I'll send you my list when I get it finished and you can add it to yours or whatever.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Susan. Hearing none. Any updates on budget, Dole?
No, nope. We're the only thing that's being expended right now is BVH in doing the earthwork analysis and some of the building revisions we've asked them about.
Okay. All right. Anything else for updates? Does anyone else have anything? All right, then we go to the big topic of the day, and that is plaza design. So I'll turn it over to Jennifer, Michaela, and Todd.
Yeah, no, thanks everybody. And I'll let Michaela take over the mic here in just a second, but just wanted to, as we've been looking at this and kind of synthesizing all the community feedback and just what we've heard from the task force of how this plaza wants to be used, or some ideas from the task force, some ideas from the community, realizing there's some synergies, realizing there's some conflicts, and just so Michaela's team wanted to really pin down program and adjacencies. And so she'll bring some stuff up on screen here, but and some examples of what could be, but we didn't really want to jump too far ahead with a hardline plan. So just wanted to give that, set the stage a little bit, that the focus for today and the goal today was to really drive home the program and make sure that we have the program pieces in the right spots and the right balance of program, from open plaza space to green space to pockets for, seating, pockets for community gathering spaces. So, and I'll let Michaela take it away here, and hopefully I'm not overstating something, but just wanted to make sure that the goal for today was really about making sure that we have a real good comfort on the program of how the plaza could be used based on what we've heard from you and what we've heard from the community engagement session.
Thanks, Todd. Let me go ahead and share. Can you see the community engagement summary?
Yes.
Okay. So like Todd said, we did take this opportunity to reflect on what we heard at the community meeting, as well as the task force meetings, and from the city as well. So I just have pulled up the summary from that community engagement meeting, and the word cloud here on the right: shade, tree, seating, outdoor space, farmers market, making sure that there's utilities and features, and then looking at kind of the plaza feeling exercise as well. So a lot of people really resonated with it being an active space, community focused, some quirkiness. And so we put together, as Todd was saying, some diagrams to get the conversation started, and really dive in on some of the other program and activities that would happen on this plaza space. So we have 3 concepts that we'd like to walk through today. And I think we'll try and get through each of those first, and then we can take it from there and help narrow down the focus as we move forward into hardlining some of these plans. So what you'll see on each of the concepts on the left-hand side is a diagram showing areas of gathering spaces, a building connection, plaza spaces, etc. On the right hand, we have some precedents that we'd like to go over, and then a quick idea on some circulation studies. And each of these little circles here is representing a person, and the dashed line around that person is their sphere of personal space. So really looking at, okay, how many people can comfortably fit on this plaza? So we have a range that we'll go through and show you as we walk through them. So I will dive into the plaza concept number 1 here. So on each of these, you'll see plaza.
Michaela, request, can you enlarge the concept that you're going go over right now. That's great. Thank you.
No problem. So on each of these, you'll see there's really 3 nodes that we see as part of the plaza as you're coming in either from Memorial, what that future creek connection looks like, and then also the building and the entry into the building and to the restroom segment on the north side here. So for this one, the mobility hub is really focused on the left-hand side of the sheet here. And then looking at programming spaces within the plaza, we're considering on this option, switching where the standard parking is with the accessible parking. The thought process there is that on the north side here with the food, this could provide an opportunity for food trucks to actually be on the plaza space and provide access, whether that's with a rolled curb, etc., for a couple of food trucks to be on the space. As we're looking at the main entry, if there's some sort of art focal piece or play feature, I'll show you a couple images in just a second. And then continuing with some open plaza area that could serve as some farmers market. There could be classes, could be set up as an area for music, even play features as part of music. And getting closer to the creek, looking at maybe a built shade element, and then that connection with the covered breezeway. So thinking a little bit about that indoor-outdoor connection here. So what does that look like in terms of people? So that connection space, if you can start to imagine maybe 4 people sitting around a table here. All of the circles on this diagram are looking at about, we have like around 75 people. So you can start to see what that looks like on the space. And then these squares are representative of 10 by 10 pop-up tents. So if those are temporary for events or a market, etc. And then on the north-hand side, we have the approximately 14 by 7 foot wide food trucks. So you can see, can comfortably fit about 2 food trucks. They were side by side on that north side of the plaza. And really, the mobility and transit hub features are on the west side with the plaza and active space adjacent to the building. So in terms of precedent images that we would really like to get your feedback on, we pulled just some ideas for either movable chairs and tables that could be set up temporarily and or they could remain on the plaza and people can move these around and adjust the space as needed for their needs. Some pollinator garden beds. So some seasonal interest, looking at maybe some low shrubs and or perennial beds. Idea of a farmer's market. We have some great opportunities in the whole plaza area to look at hardscape and paving patterns, mimicking what and reflecting on what the building materials are and carrying that into the plaza ground plane. Here's an example of art or sculpture that could be incorporated for photo opportunity, play feature. The space adjacent to this is a poured in place, so it's a soft surface for if it is intended to be a play feature. You can even see in the background here, there's an example of a musical xylophone. In terms of built shade and structure and incorporating some of the natural boulder seating, as well as a curvilinear stone wall, which could also serve as a bench seating underneath a shade structure. The idea of food trucks, and then the possibility of some site lighting. So thinking about this both in the daytime and nighttime setting. Go to concept 2. For this concept, we were looking at the open plaza being closer to the creek, providing a little bit larger of an area in terms of the opportunity for some impromptu games, whether that's cornhole, there's the large chess pieces and checkers that could either be incorporated as part of a paving pattern or temporary play features within the plaza space. We're looking at an alternative for a gathering space, and maybe that becomes a labyrinth. This one, in terms of the plaza entry and space, we were thinking about the building connection and how if there's a door incorporated on this side of the building, connecting that into the plaza space and bringing people out. To the north, focusing more on the public transit node, maybe there's picnic tables or small seating space. So if people are coming and parking and then coming into this plaza space, they have an opportunity to gather before they move on to their next destination. You will see common to all on these is that really focusing the mobility hub, bike racks, bike lockers, more on the west side of the plaza space. This one is still looking at accessible parking on the north, and then the food truck standard parking on the north side of the building. And also on each of these, we've dashed in, and I know Jennifer and Todd will talk a little bit more about what the additional storage space may look like, but you'll see what that, with the dashed line, where that kind of, how that impacts the sidewalk configuration. So on this one, in terms of people, this is looking at about 60 people. People were gathered around small tables or a picnic table. We have the 10 by 10 pop-up tents. So we have the 12 of those represented in this plaza space. And then connections as you're moving into and through the space. It really is meant to be on each of these fairly organic. You will see that there's really no movement through any of those planted buffer areas though. So some precedent images to go through on this. These are built picnic tables, which the idea on these would be that they would be surface mounted so people wouldn't be moving these around. The idea of natural shade, and you can see another example of a different plaza paving pattern. Again, the idea of a farmer's market, incorporation of food trucks, a small gathering space and public art. So whether that becomes more of a labyrinth with the paving pattern that people can enjoy as part of a meditation exercise, or if the seating area becomes part of the public art and experience. Another example of some built shade and lighting. And adjacent to that here, we have an example of some of the seasonal hanging baskets that could be incorporated. And then games such as cornhole, as I mentioned previously, chess, etc. Going into concept 3, this one is looking again at that flex space open area with some natural shade and connection to the creek with opportunities for community events, and again, that connection with the covered breezeway. On this one, we were thinking about the building connection and the possibility of even incorporating a fire ring, depending on when and how the building would be utilized and the hours that it would be open, and even seasonally, the opportunity for people to gather in the plaza area, and also reflecting on the tribal aspect that came up during the community meeting as well. Some additional planting buffers, and the idea of either a raised garden bed or seat wall that kind of separates and breaks up the plaza space. Public gathering with a built-in shaded seating area, and then to draw people in from the plaza and to the mobility hub, looking at an art and play feature on the north side again. So some ideas and precedent images. A seating node, so a little bit more of an intimate space on this one. An idea of what that raised planter bed and curvilinear seating may begin to look like. Murals and public art. So if there's some sort of either incorporated on the wall itself for the seating, or if there's some sort of freestanding or in a paving pattern. Again, another example of hardscape and paving where this can really help to define some of the areas. An example of a fire pit, and then here we're looking at some seasonal perennial beds and some deciduous tree planting. A small gathering area, so this is an example from the Wheeler town clock, and then an example of a site lighting piece that can actually also function and have a dual purpose as some community art piece as well. And then in terms of our circulation, this one is looking at more of a 50-person space. So you could imagine a fire ring, 8-foot diameter with people around, the 10 by 10 pop-up tents as well. This has 5 represented, and then people moving and sitting throughout this space as well. So those are the 3 concepts. A lot to digest. So we are, I think the goal and what we would really appreciate, like Todd mentioned earlier, just some, if there are things that are definitely, if they resonate as we really like that, or even if it's like, no, we really don't think that would work in this space. We want to hear both of those opinions.
Comments? Thoughts?
Michaela, can you just reinforce? I think this option, Plaza Concept 1 has the most people. The second option has a little less, and the third option has, so it's 75, 60, 50.
That is correct.
Roughly. Okay.
I mean, and you can see some of them, like you could add more people in some of these spaces. But generally you can also see on concept 3, there's some additional planting and planting buffers versus some of the other plaza spaces as well.
Yeah, so finding that balance between the kind of the bigger community spaces versus the final option being I think you identified a couple more intimate spaces.
Yes.
Yep.
Anyone have any input? Bill?
I think you're on mute, Bill.
Well, he's trying to do that. I'll just say a couple of things from my perspective. I want to maximize functionality and flexibility. That's 2 of the things that I think are very important. Thirdly, the night of the community engagement, there was I don't think they'll be happy with any of these because there's not as much greenery as folks asked for that night. Now I'm a bit concerned because I think that we had such a huge representation of gardeners there that night and not of other disciplines within the city, but that's what we have. So, but nonetheless, I think that maximizing greenery is going to be very, very important. The labyrinth is interesting, but we tried to put a labyrinth up in Wheeler Park, and I don't think it's been particularly well received. Unfortunately, I think part of that was bad design. In that we didn't invest enough in it. We should have. It's not a good labyrinth. So those are just a couple of very quick knee-jerk reactions at this point, given that we just saw this. Susan. You're on mute, Susan.
I think just a reminder of what we heard, and I'm not so sure. It's hard to absorb all these 3 concepts at once. I'm not saying they're not fine. I'm just trying to make sure we cover all the bases. And boy, what I heard from the group is they want shade, but they want it to be natural shade rather than built shade structures, I think. I mean, maybe there could be a combination of smaller structures, but trees were just overwhelmingly, we keep hearing about trees and we've heard it all the way through. This is not just plaza design. People want trees. So, from the plaza meeting, I heard each group say they would like to have some seating by the creek. They consider that really special space right there. So, and Michaela, it may be there. I just had trouble seeing the concepts and tracking the details. So, but I think that's something to keep in mind. And I know these were just examples that you showed us, but for instance, if we have picnic tables, I think in Manitou, we shouldn't have standard picnic tables. We should have something creative and funky. And so, and I know that's a detail we're not ready for yet, but it's something to keep in mind. And on how people want the plaza to feel, I think we've probably covered generally with your programming ideas about active, community-focused, natural, somewhat, but I don't see any historic element. I don't see any quirkiness really. And maybe again, that comes at the next level because we're at concepts and we're only talking about program and not necessarily design. But I would just encourage all of us to keep those things in mind because we heard them strongly. And we've heard them throughout, not just the plaza meeting. Yeah.
Anne and then Tweed.
Yeah, could you switch to the concept 3, please? So I do think I agree with what Nancy said, is I think the clear feeling of at least the people that attended, and they may have been more representative of the garden club than the community is, and that's probably true, but I think there needs to be more green area. I think 1 has very, very little, and I don't remember about 2, but I think something in the range of 3 would be closer to what we heard at that citizen engagement. And I agree that, and I can't see what the area is to the far south on this one, but I agree that people wanted something closer to the creek. And clearly the covered breezeway will provide some of that. But I think there is a feeling that they would want to gather on the south end more than, say, the north end.
Tweed, go ahead.
Okay. I'm thinking about all of the emphasis that was put on public art. And that is not necessarily intended to be massive sculptures or anything like that. It's the Manitou quirkiness that we're after. And I don't see that in any of the illustrations. And again, I understand we're not there yet, but that needs to be top of mind along with green trees. And Nancy, I'm with you on the labyrinth. I wasn't even aware of the earlier attempt, but there is no way, I've walked one. There is no way a labyrinth belongs in the middle of 50 some odd people doing other things. That's just not what it is. So that's all I've got at this moment.
Thanks. A couple other things. I do like a couple of the, there's a couple of examples of art here. I like the mural, the examples of art. I like the big bear that people can, or that concept of a large sculpture that kids can play on. Mm-hmm. And I like the quiet, there was a quiet seating area. I know there was I think a small seating area. And I know when a lot of times when you're using your cursor, it doesn't, yeah, that small seating nodes. I thought that, because there was, I know at my table, people really wanted like a mini or a little public library there. There people could go and read. I don't know if that would be ultra comfortable, but, and I had another thing too. I can't remember now. Yeah, it's hard to remember to go back and make comments on things. I like 2 or 3 better than 1. And I can't even tell you why now. So it's hard for me to comment. So what else we got?
I've got a
Any-
few comments if it's okay.
Oh, Erin, sorry. Erin and Dole, go ahead if Dole's still
Yeah.
with us.
So I think one of the things that I think is a really good switch is moving the accessible parking to the north end of the building. I think that gives us a lot of flexibility if we have the drop-off food truck in where those were previously located. So I think that is a move that I really support in whatever sort of happens form giving wise in the plaza. But I think just the synergy through the plaza with the food truck, it makes sense to have them there. And so that we don't maybe have to do vehicular, enforced paving in the plaza, and it can just, be sort of vehicles are sort of accessing it at the north side there. I do like the idea of on concept 1, the image with the bear and that poured in place play sculpture. I think using art and play as an integrated option for sort of getting some of that Manitou quirkiness makes a lot of sense. That being said, would you mind just flipping through the 3 options? I think I'm testing my memory here. And then the next one. So I would say that I don't feel like that use is appropriate on the north side because of the food trucks and because of the sort of path of travel that I think will take a lot of people through that entry you have called out on the north side and the entry from the building on the vestibule. I think we'll see a lot of people walking through that space. And if I'm, someone that's bringing my children to play, I would want that play area to be a little bit more of a defensible space, a little bit more containment where I know that the kids can't just charge off into the parking lot. So I think having that maybe be a little bit more either tucked more inside of the plaza and not at the periphery, I think makes sense. In terms of shade structures, if one was added, because I know shade right of way is something people wanted, but trees might not get there just depending on the size of them. I would see something maybe a little bit more that is going to disappear a little bit more or has flexibility to be, we'll say, taken down in the future. So a sunshade or a sail might be more appropriate because we don't necessarily need it to have, I'll say, rain protection, but maybe just sun. And then in the future, if the trees fill in really nice, we could potentially, get rid of that and use it for maybe some lighting instead the catenary fixtures that you're showing. For lighting, I do think the options that are shown are very bright, and we are trying to be dark sky friendly in Manitou Springs. So I think more soft lighting, maybe using more bollards instead, or sort of wall lights might be more appropriate so that it's giving safety, and maybe there's lighting attached to the building because that's where we might see more of that later night occupancy of this plaza associated with events. Might be just a little bit more appropriate. Those are some things just right away. I'll also say in terms of fixed seating versus movable seating, I think we would prefer to see it be in terms of like tables and chairs, movable seating. That would be me, just to give us more flexibility so that if we're occupying it for an event, we can put tents up. If we're not, then we can have tables and chairs to activate it on a weekday. I have a few other thoughts, but I think the other picture I do really like, and I think that's what's sort of heading in the right direction, is in terms of seating for these sort of smaller, more intimate nodes, is this option here in the middle, the small gathering spaces and public art. Using it as sort of a showcase for art is what makes sense for anything that's creating more of those like intimate, smaller moments. I also say in terms of site walls, some of those that are shown are pretty modern. I think going with something that is maybe a little less modern on those options makes sense. I think Plaza Concept 3 is the one that's moving in the right direction because it does have more of that planting buffer. It does, you know, in terms of what that's showing. However, I think a raised buffer, like garden that goes the entire sort of length of the dance hall that wouldn't allow pass through space. If that's truly a barrier, I don't know that that makes sense to me. But I do think this one is moving more in the direction of what I feel like I heard at the public event, but I'll stop. That was a lot. Sorry.
And thank you for reminding me of the shade sale or whatever you call them, because most of the tables at the public engagement were, I think, unified around doing that as shade structure. And I liked your concept, Erin, of they could go up or down depending on the season or the need.
Mm-hmm.
Also, something I didn't see in here was, and we've talked about it in the past, it didn't come up a lot at the community engagement meeting, but I think it's critical for this. And it goes both with the plaza as well as the mobility hub, is both interpretive signage, potentially on either the building or in the plaza itself, as well as informational signage, because this will be a wayfinding station for folks critical to the mobility hub.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as much, you know, whatever we can do in terms of information signage is going to be important here as well.
And that reminds me, I think I understand why we're putting the mobility transit hub on the west side. But I think as the concept develops, I'd like to see, you know, that north building is supporting the mobility. And so those two things need to really speak to each other and have a clear sort of connection or pathway spaces, you know, into the building for that north sort of support of the mobility here.
Other comments, Susan?
You know, a number of people mentioned seating on benches, and I think if we could have a combination of movable chairs, tables, and then bench seating maybe as lining garden areas or something, that would be good.
Anybody else? Is this helpful, Michaela?
Yes, it is.
And you know, one other thought, I know we want dark skies lighting, you know, I'm not seeing anything real historical on this plaza, and people said they wanted a historic feel. Maybe we could use historic looking light fixtures. I don't know if you can do that with dark sky lighting, but we need to get some historic in there somewhere.
It's a good point, Susan. Yeah.
Yeah. One
As
comment.
well as, oh, go
Sorry.
ahead, Todd.
I was just saying, I think this picture of the hardscape paving to me speaks a little bit to that historic, like it having that texture or something on the ground that could help elevate that historic nature, or like the kind of different paving patterns, both to separate and define spaces, but also that could be a way to, rather than being really modern paving examples, that they're a little bit more rustic or a little bit more historic as an idea. And Michaela, can you speak to, I know the bubbles are very, they're colorized, so they suggest things, but I'm assuming in some of these, like the flex space, you have natural shade written down there. There's going to be some greenery in those spaces, right?
Yes,
Or-
the intent is that there would be some sort of green, deciduous tree planting in those spaces.
So it wouldn't be
And-
just, the green space wouldn't just be limited to the literal green spaces, planting buffers, but they'll be sprinkled in some of these other colored bubbles, right?
That's correct. Yes. This would just be more intensive planting and an idea of like the perennial plants or some shrubs, etc.
Susan?
We've also heard the desire, and not just at this meeting, but in prior meetings, for permeable surface on the plaza so that we reduce runoff to the creek. Do you have that in any of the options?
So that could be incorporated in any of these, and that would be in coordination with civil.
Another, I talked about flexibility and functionality. I would also say ease of maintenance is a criteria that I think is important for this as well. So irrigation of the planting buffer, easy way to shovel it off in the winter time or de-ice or whatever. And I think it's my understanding that pavers are permeable. If you put pavers in, that is permeable, right?
No, that's not necessarily the case. It depends on what the substructure is underneath and how that is engineered. It may
Okay.
collect some, but it's not that it would actually function as a permeable surface in all cases.
Okay.
And a paver system can also be grouted.
Okay. Yeah, I am a supporter of permeable surfaces. However, ease of maintenance is also very critical. So we don't want weeds growing up through a permeable surface, et cetera,
And
because that
permeable
is
surfaces
problematic.
will need to be maintained. They need to be vacuumed out so that they actually function as a permeable surface. So any sort of sand, gravel that gets stuck in between those pavers, that is something that would be just part of the maintenance regime of keeping them functional.
And just
So
kind
that's
of
thank you, Ben.
FYI for the task force, as we get sort of the next round of plaza design, we will be including Jillian, the Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Manitou Springs. So she will also provide some comments here with her knowledge of sort of what the maintenance capabilities are for the city right now.
Erin, do you have
Thanks.
any insight right now in terms of what she may offer regarding a really planted and maintained areas?
So in terms of, we'll say, the vacuum of permeable pavers, I don't believe we have the equipment to do anything like that right now. In terms of the highly, we'll say, garden-esque beds that happen around town, we do have a city gardener as well, who helps with a lot of that. So I think there's just sort of some capacity conversations that need to happen, and just to kind of think about, is it the right plant in the right place, and how that goes. So it's sort of, I know it's a little sort of a bridge further than where we're at right now, but she would not advocate for this all being hardscape by any means. So
Thanks, Erin.
So, and the only other thing that I think I have at this point is on the north side there, the one that's up currently with the food truck and the gathering space next to each other. Yeah. Someone, I know my group had suggested that there be like an art wall or a living wall or something, kind of separating those two things to kind of really make the plaza more intimate, a bit more intimate, or not, just breathing fumes from the cars.
talking about like a wall here or something.
Are you pointing at something?
Oh, did it not annotate on the screen?
It
No, it
did.
Oh,
But
Oh,
yeah, further,
it went away.
yeah.
so one thing that I will say in terms of a literal wall, I think having maybe some buffer in there might make sense, but we would want to make sure we're respecting sightlines in terms of keeping this space safe throughout all times of the day. So we probably wouldn't want anything much taller than 3 feet, or you have a seat wall with some planting that sort of gives you that separation from the cars.
And that's a great point I hadn't thought of, Erin. So thank you for that. I do, but I still think that having a physical something there and along where the dotted line is to the west there, between the two plaza entries, between the mobility hub stuff and the plaza itself, I think something that separates somehow. But I hear your comment about the sight lines are important, so that for safety.
Hey, Nancy.
Yeah. Is that
So
Dole?
there's really a lot. Yeah, hi. I kind of have two comments. One is, I still consider this mobility area its number one goal, and I think you said it, Nancy, was to be functional as a mobility hub and as a event, people gathering opportunity. And so what that means to me is there's two things. One, I think there needs to be enough hard space for foot traffic, for people to stand around, for whatever that means. But because one of our goals was to take some of the use off of Memorial Park,
Right.
and we can't take traffic off of Memorial Park if we can't give them some equivalent use in this area. So I know everyone wants it planted, but I think we need to have a sufficient amount of hardscape. But the justification is that we would no longer rent out all of Memorial Park at once. It would only be kind of half at a time type thing, and then we kind of protect the park better. But so in that spirit, I almost feel like there needs to be somewhat of an unobstructed pathway between, Old Man's Trail and the entrances to the building.
Yeah, and I great point, Stoll, and I agree with you. I just saw those two plaza entries as the unobstructed way to get into the plaza. But just that say again?
Well, looking at the one up on the screen, well, here, let's look at that one. Yeah, see, that one probably has a better flow path to the plaza entry on the side. I just think it's important that we maintain
You're breaking up, Stoll.
the crosswalks. Oh, sorry. I think you heard my point, Nancy. I just think we need to have good connections.
Yeah, no, and that's an excellent point. I think it's important as well, Dole. So, unless anyone has any additional comments, we can probably wrap up this discussion and ask what our next steps are with this. Like, can we get copies of this so we can study it in greater detail?
Yeah, Todd, Jennifer, I'll
Yeah, absolutely.
defer to you.
Absolutely. No, we're happy to share this. We welcome if there's comments that you think of at later today or tomorrow or a few days from now, and just we're open to receiving those comments just to help us inform us as we're moving through this plaza design. I mean, the idea we shared with Michaela earlier was, maybe in 2 weeks she comes back with a little bit more refined plan or an option, just to taking this and synthesizing what she's heard today, and developing something that has a little bit more definition to it. But I think it'll take a little bit more of your feedback if you want to share some. Maybe we plan on, if you could send any comments you have by this time next week. It's just a way to keep the communication going, even though, and sorry, I'm thinking out loud a little bit, and trying to make sure Michaela has time to respond. We'll plan to share the plans from DHM maybe a day in advance. Is that enough time to look at the plans, or?
So if we
that-
can get any comments back probably by the beginning of next week, that would be appreciated, versus waiting a whole week. So then we do have time to get it to you a day in advance.
Sounds good.
Shall
Thank
we-
you.
shall-
Nancy?
Question, shall we
Go
send
ahead.
sorry,
Go, Susan.
shall we send the comments to, I'm not sure if we have Michaela's email address. Should we send them to Todd and Jennifer to forward on, or where should we send them?
Why don't we send them to Dole and Aaron for them to forward to the appropriate
Okay.
people?
All right.
That works.
So
Well, and task force, if I'm being honest, I almost feel like it would be beneficial for us to chat about the options as a task force specifically as well.
Do,
Okay, Dole, you mean without the contractors?
Yes, just for us to kind of do what we do and just to kind of discuss element concepts and the goods, the bads, and then to maybe consolidate our comments to the consultants. We
Okay,
don't want to, if one person says do this and another person says do something else. I think that's more than just a message to them.
we're not hearing most of your words, Dole, sorry.
yeah, I think I got the gist of what you're saying, Dole, is that we don't want to send contradicting comments to the consultants. I'm wondering, just given sort of sensitivity to the timeline, and would it be feasible if the task force members, if you were able to send Dole and I all of your comments by, we'll say, noon on Tuesday, and then we could compile them and summarize, what comments we feel are maybe contradictory, and then set up a time to discuss those specifically. But that way, then everybody has sort of a moment to sort of talk in the comments, and then we bring it up at the meeting.
So Erin, can I clarify? So do we need to repeat what we've said today in the comments we send to you? Or is it just additional comments?
It can just be,
Oh, what?
I see Todd shaking his head, so he says no.
I mean, we've been taking notes here, and I think we can synthesize some of the things we've heard today. Just and I'm sure there's going to be reinforcement of the additional comments you do have. But yeah, any new comments, or if you've thought about it and you want to, I don't know. I'm always an advocate to hear more color and context from groups once they've had a chance to think through it. Maybe it's just how I operate. One of those people that can't always think in the moment, but can process, the next day a little bit easier. So
that sounds good. What we'll do then is if you guys would get those designs to Dole and Erin, they get it out to the task force like tonight. We get back to Dole and Erin with any addition. And I suspect you've got the bulk of our comments at this point, but I know that I would like to compare and contrast a lot more. And I may or may not have additional comments. Get them to Dole and Erin by noon on Tuesday. This may not meet Michaela's timeline though, but I think it would give the task force enough time to really process all of this. And then Dole and Erin can let us know if there is a lot of additional input and what is contradictory. And if we need to meet as a task force next Thursday, perhaps we need to meet as a task force next Thursday. We can.
In order to give Michaela a little bit more time, would it be possible to plan on meeting, Wednesday, so that we can summarize it, just give her one more day? I know Dole, looks like your schedule is busy in, we'll say, the afternoon until 4 on next Wednesday, but the morning looks pretty open for us. And I am also out of the office on Thursday afternoon, so I wouldn't be able to be part of that conversation, and I'd really like to be. So
Yeah, I'm booked all day on Wednesday.
okay.
I don't know what everybody else is.
Yeah, I can't do Wednesday morning at all.
What about Thursday morning, just so we're getting it earlier in the day?
I can do Thursday morning.
Yeah, I could too.
Let me look. Yeah, we can too. We muted. We can.
So we can plan maybe on 9 o'clock on Thursday?
Sure. If
Yep.
if the comments come back in by Tuesday, if you guys look at them and feel that we need to have another discussion, let's plan tentatively to meet the 12th at 9 o'clock.
Sounds good.
Appreciate
Thanks.
that. Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Okay, so anything else, Michaela, or shall we move on to Todd and Jennifer?
Nothing else for me, and Todd and Jennifer, unless you need me, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off.
That works.
Thanks.
Thank you, Michaela.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Michaela.
Taylor,
Thank you.
for all the work you did.
Yeah.
I've also been taking notes, so I can send those right after the meeting so that you see what I've been recording. Susan, we'll see if we match up.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen. So we've looked at two options for potential storage and how we can do that. One option is if we kept those in the existing footprint, and then another is if we expanded the new addition to the north. So the version I have on my screen right now is the same north footprint as we've developed this far, and then creating some storage rooms in the north corners of the dance hall. I'll zoom in. So what this fits is just checking. I checked in with Dole this week too, so I could get the reminder of the quantity that we were going for. So this dance hall layout has 224 seats in a banquet layout. So we could get all those tables and chairs in this room. But if you wanted to do the lecture layout, similar to what we discussed before, this, if you wanted all chairs, that was 440. So flipping back, let me get this number in front of me. This would require 200 of those chairs to be stored off-site for the lecture layout, but the banquet could be stored in these rooms. But and then we do have this original storage room where you could put, this is my guess at what, ping pong tables might be if they were all folded up, and, small little area for shelving for miscellaneous items. So that's what we have in that option. And then the option I've got right next door is this added 500 square feet to the north addition. I think that's about, let me measure. I want to say it's like 6 feet that I added, but I would have to check that. So that leaves the small coat and an IT AV closet in the dance hall, but then allows for seating, or all the storage is in this storage room. And I stole a couple square feet from mechanical, narrowed that up, and then pushed this whole wall to the north. For this plan, so these restrooms were relocated so that that's in a little group to be able to allow this to move north. So the quantities over here that we're able to store for the full banquet layout, and all the chairs for the lecture layout. But what's not shown is, any of the additional storage here. So I think that there were 5 dollies, so these 5, or you could arrange that a little bit differently, that many dollies for the chairs to fit to accommodate this banquet layout. So if we didn't store all of these chairs here, there could be some additional storage for kind of all the miscellaneous things that you'd want in this room if we didn't store all the chairs for the lecture layout here.
And what are the differences in costs to accommodate this? Do you have any sense of that, Jennifer? For the two options? The first one.
We didn't do a cost analysis for this scheme, but we have 500 additional square feet. I'll be honest, I didn't check our estimate to guess what our current costs are per square foot.
With
It's probably in the, $200,000 to $300,000 range.
With the extension north, what does that narrow that sort of path around the north side of the building to?
Can take some measurements real quick. Oops, I'm sorry. So that's 6 feet plus this one, 9 feet. Oops. And almost about 8 feet.
The east to west, though, it didn't get wider, did it?
It actually narrowed.
Okay.
Yeah, we're showing a little bit more detail on the kitchen on either one, but it did seem like a double-sided kitchen would be nice in either of these options.
Mhm.
Just to have storage on both sides rather than one side. So I can do some measurements here. Yeah, it was kind of nice to widen up the sidewalk on this side. So, because this one is large, that's 17 feet. 8 feet over here and 5 on the east. So that would have grown by 8 feet.
So
Susan, go ahead.
yeah, Jennifer, did you say in option 2 that you've got storage for 440, seating for 440 with that? What kind
Yes.
of banquet?
So it accommodates the same banquet number, 240. Let
Okay,
me step back. The option on the left has 224 seats in the banquet because of the addition of the space inside the dance hall.
Mhm.
So the banquet on the right is 240 since we don't have those areas. Option 1, you can store all of the banquet tables and chairs on site. Option 2, you can store tables and chairs for the banquet plus seats needed for a lecture or additional storage, like we've heard ping pong tables specifically.
okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's hard again to.
Yeah, I'll zoom in.
It looks like option 1 is the one with additional storage within the dance hall, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So it looks like we lose some space in terms of functionality for use of the dance hall, but we gain some significant storage space, but we also lose the IT and the coat closet.
Yeah, in this option, I do have a IT AV in the table storage.
Good,
And
because
then, yeah, we were thinking this option, either we could provide, traditional like coat racks or maybe a movable rack that would be put out in the breezeway or in the hall if we needed
then
to.
the 224 seats we could do in a banquet here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and then I would assume that the cost is considerably less if we went with this option. I would think pretty minimal to do this particular option.
Yeah, I agree. Not the 250,000.
I personally like the idea of the movable coat racks because then they can kind of put them where they want people entering the event, and then we don't wear coats all year, so then it's not like a permanent thing. It can be collapsed and sort of tucked away on other times of year.
And I think that, yeah, what does everyone else think?
Well, I think my opinion on whether to extend the building or build in the closets in the historic building depends on what what it does to the kitchen. I mean, a kitchen, we still need to know if we can solve that with the existing footprint, or if we need to expand the building to solve the kitchen problem.
Remind me again, the kitchen problem. Is
Yeah.
it just,
I think, Sue, correct me if I'm wrong, but all we need is a really residential stove in there. We needed to just know what the cutoff for to have a stove versus a commercial kitchen. We don't want to go to a full commercial kitchen where we need all sorts of permits and fog stuff, et cetera, et cetera. But we do need a stove, refrigerator, decent sink, probably a double sink, and microwave
yeah,
for
I
just
think,
community events.
yes, that could easily be accommodated. So I think I think as long as it's an electric stove, or electric
Yeah.
range,
Yep.
that's doable, and we can easily accommodate what we have in plan. So if
Okay.
it's more than just a warming kitchen or a catering or warming kitchen, which would include these things, then we need to think differently. But if it's just that, a warming or catering kitchen where they're doing some light prep and not trying to serve meals out of this room, I mean, cook and serve meals, I should say, to a large number, we'll need to think differently.
Okay. What does everyone think?
I'll zoom over to this other kitchen. I think in this version, you just have a little more counter space in this option because that kitchen is about 55 square feet bigger.
So we didn't need more space in the kitchen. We just needed the right appliances, right?
I think that was our main thing. And there's also, if the kitchen's a little bigger, that also accommodates a little bit more storage if needed.
True. Mm-hmm.
So I would say that I'm torn. I don't think additional $250,000 makes a lot of sense, but I also don't particularly like the two corners being taken in the open dance hall. So
I agree.
I'm not
totally.
real happy. I mean, I think we're back to where we were at the beginning and that is there are ways to get the required tables and chairs from an offsite location, and we ought to just leave the design the way it currently is.
And Anne, just to reinforce our thought behind, these walls, we need some solid walls for structure. To hold the corners, just how our structural engineer would like to see this building framed and for shear purposes. And so those are going to be solid walls at those ends. It will feel differently because we have, Jen, could you zoom into that area? We also have the roof kind of slopes and gets lower, I think, from this joist line north. So the space is going to feel a little bit different in that entry space than it will feel in the rest of the dance hall.
Okay.
So that's not that I'm just giving you some more context here of
Right.
It will look a little bit different, and it's
so maybe that's okay. Again, I'm not at all in favor of expanding the north building. I think that just does not work on a variety of ways. But I hear what you're saying about the north part of the building, and I don't know that we've seen enough detail to actually understand quite how that's going to look different. But maybe given that, some sort of moderate storage in those two corners, if it's going to be solid walls anyway, as you say, we're not going to have windows there, right?
Right.
So maybe that's
Correct.
Okay. But I would
Yeah, and-
definitely nix the expansion of the north building.
Yeah, I like this solution. I'm not for spending another 250, 300K. to expand the north building. I think that this will meet the needs. I hate taking up any more space in the dance hall, but I think that storage, as I've said over and over again, I'm sure you're bored of hearing me say it, is so critical to the functionality of this dance hall, that this will meet that need with the chairs and tables in here, and then the other storage for other things like cornhole games, ping pong tables, whatever it might be. I just think that this makes so much more sense to incorporate it now rather than having storage sheds later on.
So I mean, we can incorporate it when we get to that point. It's not a structural element, right? So do we have, I mean, I think we can agree that something like that probably is the only thing that makes sense. And we can quit redesigning the north building and go forward.
Susan?
We need to consider any storage needs we're gonna have from the plaza. Like if we're gonna have removable tables and chairs, are those gonna need to be stored in the winter, and where are those gonna be stored? Do we need to store game stuff that might be used on the plaza? I think we need to think about that before.
Well, that's my point, Susan. And I think with this design, with the one where we just add closets, which isn't ideal, but it's better than not doing it. And then where originally the storage was going to be, can be used for all the stuff in the plaza and other things that we need for the dance hall.
Are we sure it's enough?
I don't know, because we'll never know exactly, but it's way more than we had before.
And I think for the movable chairs and tables from the plaza, I think that's something, if we know that they need to be outside in the winter, that storing all of them inside, that can be a performance requirement for whatever site furnishings are chosen there.
Do we want to make a decision on the number of chairs that we want to be able to store at the site? I feel like it's a moving target, which keeps affecting a lot of things. I mean, do we want to say that we think the city should have the ability to store X amount of chairs hidden away, not set up, and then to Ann's point, anything above that becomes a problem of the event user? Because I feel like if we decided on the size of or the number of chairs and tables, then we could better fit perhaps some of the internal storage to it. And I just feel like we're all over the place in the number of tables and chairs we want to try to store.
Yeah. And I would add a different perspective, I guess, Dole, and that is, I think, given what Todd said about the slope of the roof and the structural elements that have to be on the corners of the north end, that we let that define the extent of what may be storage space, and that's all there is. And like you say, if we need more than that, it's up to the users to get them trucked in and trucked out.
Well, Todd, so we can clarify exactly your point. You just mean the wall that's along the north side of the dance hall that's attached to the breezeway. That wall and the west edge wall gets shored up without windows, not the actual wall that creates the storage space.
Correct. Just the exterior walls of that closet space of the.
Yeah. So the point is that the walls that are used to make the storage are not structural and are just there at the convenience of the storage space.
Right. But my point is, we wouldn't go further south just to make more storage space. We would confine the storage space to where there have to be structural external elements that create the need for having no windows. And we stop there. And that's the space we have, period.
And that's what it is now, right? That's what you've shown on here?
Correct, yes. Just maximize that space that we have, or that are defined by the structural needs and that don't have any windows into those spaces.
I think that's fine. I think we ought to just stop here. I mean, I think that works, and whatever storage space there is, and end of discussion.
And I'm in agreement with that. Where's everybody else?
Fine.
Well, I don't think there's ever enough storage space personally, but we've got to be practical as well. So,
Well, yeah. But so Todd, those dimensions are from your structural guy on the exterior walls?
Yes, roughly. We're,
Okay.
I mean, it's one of those trade-offs. We could increase more steel or more columns, and make that shorter to create some more windows. But I think at the moment, we're trying to balance. It's this balance of budget and function, and just where the columns were laying out and how the design was shaking out, that made sense to hold at those that first bay of columns.
Yeah.
That ceiling will be vaulted there, so those walls will just go to the ceiling, or will it be like drop down of some sort?
I think we need to study that and refine that, and we can refine that a little bit. And at our next meeting, we can show a little bit more of a rough 3D view, just so you kind of get a sense of what that space is looking like.
Okay.
Just
Sounds
to,
like everyone's okay then.
yeah, just to talk out loud, in our initial schemes, we did have even those IT and AV closets, the little closets going to the roof, but there's a great little pavilion up in Lyons. I don't know if you guys have been there, but they have like just storage spaces towards the back of their stage, and they do have like shorter walls, which I think could be a nice option here, and leave the bottom exposed. Except, Noah, I need to take that back because we need to look at the mechanical and how that comes into the space, because we're trying to do a lot in that little area.
yeah.
Yeah.
Pretend I didn't say it.
Aaron?
I do like this concept. I think it's a good happy medium with some different things. And I think that going to this first set of columns really respects the modular rhythm of the historic structure. Than if we tried to make it, smaller, then I think then it just feels more intentional if we're going to that first set of columns. And I think that makes sense with what Todd's saying in terms of the structurals, that's sort of the best option structurally too. So I think reinforcing to try to make it smaller, I don't know that fully makes sense to me with what I would assume would be an added cost. And then it might sort of be then out of alignment with some of these other structural things that are happening in the dance hall.
Thanks, Aaron. So what I'm hearing is general consensus that this is the approximation of what we want, or that we're willing to go with. So I guess we can move on and go to our next topic, which is proposed next steps, which Jennifer had proposed November 14th for the City Council work session and December 5th for the City Council approval. That's tight. That's a very tight timeline. Can we make that? Susan?
Remember, we need to get a public open house in there before the work session.
Right, for the final
yeah.
layout of everything. Yep. And then before we go to approval with council, we've got to have gone through HPC.
Right.
So
Right.
we can't flip those. So when were we looking at being able to go back to the public with, this is it, this is the plaza, the building, everything?
Just a minute.
The work session is where we're discussing the earthwork, correct? And were we wanting to go to the public it was my understanding we would want to go to the public after the earthwork conversation because it could impact, some site circulation. But maybe I'm misremembering.
Well, and my understanding is that until we see what the earthwork result is, that we don't know if, at least the discussion we had last time, was we may not go to council other than in a memo describing, we've looked at that option, it's just not even close to feasible, end of discussion. So it may just
Correct.
be a memo. It may not be a work session, which would be very quick and over.
That's true. I was going to talk with Denise as how we might present this. So the key here is two things. One is when we're going to get that earthwork done, which you're saying is about November 2nd. Jennifer?
Yes, that's right.
So we should be able to come up with a recommendation, hopefully from that. But until we see it, it's going to be difficult for us to know if we have to go to city council with it or just make a recommendation on it.
Correct.
Or a proposal, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, if we end up saying we're going to raise the building, that's a major discussion.
Yeah.
If we end up saying we've looked at that, it's just not even in the realm of feasibility, that's a 5-minute memo.
So we can't, it's very difficult for us to make any decisions on timeline until we get the results, and that won't be till November 2nd.
Yeah.
Which is a different discussion than from the city council approval. So we have to have a public meeting before that city council approval, and it needs to go to HPC before the city council approval. Are we going to be able to make those two deadlines?
So I think for speaking to HPC and public notice process, I think we will plan in my mind, planning November HPC is when we're discussing the roof. And that's what's happening in November, because we won't have that information with enough lead time to incorporate it into the HPC agenda. Second is if we want to go to city council for approval in December, it can't be the 5th because we would have to go to HPC on the 6th. And so we do need to go to HPC that with their blessing for the historic elements and changes here before going to city council. So December 6th would be the HPC, we'll say, other sort of approval or, acknowledgement of the changes made and that they're still in support of it.
Okay. So we've got some scheduling work to do because let me look at what council agenda is looking like in December at this point. I got it here somewhere.
I apologize. I threw out the November date, not remembering that we needed to do the public open house.
Okay, we should, currently there is a council meeting on December 19th. So we could aim for that.
Mhm.
Is that a work session?
No, that's a regular session.
Also, wouldn't you know, once you get past about December 5th, you can't get people to show up at a community meeting. So the sooner we can do this, the better. And I guess my question would be to BVH, when do you think, what's realistic to have the plaza design done, everything done, ready for public unveiling? What do you think is realistic?
Right now, in just our internal schedule, we have the floodplain being done early November, and then some time to coordinate the plaza design with those findings. Unfortunately, that puts us like right at Thanksgiving. So whether that's, November 8th or 15th, pretty terrible timing around Thanksgiving on the 23rd.
But do you think from BBH's perspective, it's realistic to be able to have a public open house with everything, with the boards, with everything that is entailed with a public open house by say December 1st. Is that realistic? I don't know what day of the week that is, but I'm just aiming for early December.
I think that's reasonable. I think the only piece that I'm a little bit confused on is if we need to go to HPC prior to that public session.
No, not prior to the public session, no.
So
can I
the,
propose November 30th for the community open house? That's a Thursday night? A week after Thanksgiving?
Well, there won't be drum circle that night, will there? Because it's winter time.
That's right. No, that
the end
could
of Oc-
work.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. That would seem to maybe work.
It seems good. A week
Mhm.
after Thanksgiving gives everybody a chance to come back home and yeah,
recover from the tryptophan.
Mhm. Right.
So we
Okay.
can shoot for maybe the task force meeting on the November 16th to present everything and kind of have all of our graphics ready for the open house.
Mhm.
Yeah, this open house should be the least complicated because it's really just to present, to not to make changes, hopefully, God forbid.
Mhm.
Right.
yeah, it's basically a bunch of display boards and a response form for people to fill out.
And presentation.
Yeah, we probably need to do a presentation saying the presentation will start at X and end at X, and then there will be an open house to follow. So if people want to ask questions, they can do that. Good point.
Okay, well, let's then, since it's 1 minute to 5, let's kind of try to lock this in. Aaron or Dole, could you see about us getting on the 19th for city council approval? And Aaron, the HPC, the 6th of November or December for HPC, prior to city council, not counting for the roof, which would be November. I can't remember when you're going to do for the roof.
Roof would be November, and the site design or sort of final site plan would be December. And I
Got
can
it.
take care of HPC if Dole will take care of city council.
Okay,
Sounds good.
and
And
then
could somebody see if we can reserve Memorial Hall on November 30th?
Yeah, let me check it. I'll check the Memorial Hall calendar and then send an email to Megan right away.
Thank you.
okay. A lot going on over the holidays, but I think we're getting much closer. Fingers crossed.
Hey,
And
Nancy.
really- sorry, Dole?
Hey, you brought up the match board.
Yeah.
Do they have any kind of a frequent meeting or something? Would it be helpful? You mentioned that you would like to be able to show them that we're spending some of their money, or will be.
We
Should we give
historically,
them a
we have to have the briefing to them typically in January or in December, the end of December, for an early January briefing to ask for funding.
Well, I understand that, but would a memo to their board be helpful of just kind of a status update, just so they know that we are working, on behalf of their money?
I don't think so at this point, Dole. And Ann, I would defer to you as well, but I don't think that's,
No, I agree. That doesn't fit they don't want people communicating with them outside of their standard schedule. Yes.
Easy enough.
and that's not, I think it would be good to be able to demonstrate that when we brief them in early January, but it's not as high a priority as some of these other things. We just may not get match money next year, that's all. But hopefully we will. Hopefully they'll take pity on.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Susan, I don't envy you doing the minutes this time. So we plan to meet next Thursday at 9 o'clock, get our input on, we'll get the designs tonight from BVH and what the other one, whose acronym I don't remember. through Aaron and Dole, then we'll send them our input by 12 o'clock on Tuesday, and we'll meet Thursday to discuss if there's any additional input. Although I think you've got most of it.
And you should have all received the meeting for Thursday morning. And if you haven't, please let me know.
Thanks. Okay. Lots to discuss. Thank you, everybody.
For your time today.
Thanks, y'all.
I hope-
Bye.
Talk with you Thursday. Thanks.